Podkin looked over to where the Starclaw and Bridget Sickle lay together on the kitchen bench. They wanted our dagger. That's what Scaramouche was after when he killed Father. But why? Bridget shrugged. Spite, maybe, or something worse. I've heard they want the 12 gifts destroyed so that all knowledge of all the gods and the goddesses fades forever. She looked down and noticed Podkin was trembling with fear at the thought. Don't worry, little one. Magic is a balance, like I said. If it swings too much one way, it just means that sometime soon it will swing back to the other. That's the rule of the deal. Don't forget. And that was the deal that can never be broken. Podkin thought for a moment and realised it meant that the Gorm were due some revenge. Even though he was still trembling a bit, he managed a little smile. Looking up at his sister, he saw she was smiling too. The children missed their parents terribly and wished more than anything they could just go home to find everything back the way it was. But even so, the little house in the woods had started to feel like a safe, happy place. It was only one day when Paz noticed Bridget scraping the last of their dried nettle leaves from a pot to make soup that they realised that they had to move on. It wasn't fair for the old rabbit to suddenly have to provide for 3 hungry mouths. But she can find more food, Podkin said when Paz mentioned it to him. She's got you to help her forage now. Yes, but it's winter and a hard one too. Have you seen how much soup Poot gets through in a day? But where will we go? Redwater was the only safe place we knew, and look how that turned out. Podkin ran his fingers over the stump where his left ear had once been. Paz gave his arm a squeeze. Bridget will know of somewhere, she said. So they asked the old rabbit that night. As it often was with her, it seemed as though she had been expecting the question. There is a place, my dears, she said with a sigh. Not a nice place, or a safe one, but a place where the Gorm won't think to look for you. She told them of a town of runaways and refugees that had sprung up amongst the crumbling tombs of an ancient graveyard. An underground warren at the forest edge amongst the bones and the teeth of the creatures long gone from the world. Bone Root, it's called. You'll have to be careful there and keep your wits about you, but I promise you there won't be anyone turned by the Gorm. Every rabbit in that place has run away from them. All their warrens have been taken or enslaved or just plain burnt to ash. They hate the Gorm as much as I do, and that's a whole lot of hating. There were mercenaries there, she said, soldiers you could hire to work for you. She pointed to the silver bracelet Paz wore and the gold buckle on Podkin's belt. If you trade those precious things, you might get someone to fight on your side, someone to protect you, maybe take you somewhere safe, off across the Escort Mountains where the Gorm have never been. That's what I would do if I were you. Podkin listened to all of this with a sad dread. The last thing he wanted to do was to go out in the cold, cruel outside world where bits of you could get cut off and lost forever. He kept thinking Bridget would change her mind and ask them to stay. Maybe if he looked especially scared and miserable. But of course she didn't. She always seemed to know what was going to happen. If she thought they were leaving, that meant there was no getting out of it. Paz, who had spent more time with the old witch, knew little of how Bridget could unpick and unravel threads of knowledge from the future. Was going to Bone Root something they had to do? Was it part of Podkin's story that she kept mentioning? But if it was a good thing, then why did she sound so sad? What was going to happen to them there? The worries buzzed around in her head, making it spin. Pook didn't want to leave either. He clutched a few of Bridget's bone pieces in his paws and tried to catch hold of her cloak whenever she moved near him. Paz could see her keeping away on purpose, but reluctantly, as if it was something she had to do. How hard it must be to know the events that had to happen for the future to unfurl just the way it should, especially if some of those events were hard or unhappy ones. Would she be able to let them happen, no matter how much it hurt, just because they had to? Paz didn't think she had that kind of strength. It made her admire the old rabbit even more. Bridget gave them directions for bone root, sketched in charcoal on a piece of bark. As a parting gift, she produced some winter cloaks with hoods, knitted hats and scarves. They were all exactly the right sizes for them, but had been folded and put away for so long that they had to have a dust and shaken off. Podkin couldn't work out how she had done it. She had also made him a cloth scarab in which he could carry Starclaw, strapped to his back and hidden away. She warned him to guard the dagger well. It was a value beyond any treasure, and made him promise that he would never ever let the Gorm touch it. Finally, they stood in the snow beneath the old oak tree and said their goodbyes. The little rabbits all hugged Bridget and kissed her wrinkled nose. She had tears in her eyes as she waved them off. As she glanced back through the trees, Paz thought she saw the sickle on Bridget's belt give a silver glimmer of goodbye, and Podkin, although he had no idea why, felt his magic dagger grow heavier at his side. Chapter 8 is Bone Root. Let's see how the trio get on when they arrive. See you soon.